I'm trying to get an idea of where most people are actually at in terms of difficulty / skill level so I can make some helpful guides. If you can vote for the difficulty you mostly play right now, it would really help me out. Voting is totally anonymous and I can't see who voted for what. Okay, of course. Now, this is a Reddit poll that's kind of interesting because as you can see, over 50% of the people who voted on this poll only play an absolute. Now, there's not an option for, this is why I voted up here, but there's not an option for saying, I play absolute and also lower ranks, because depending on my build and the level of it, I definitely go through ruthless and lethal. And when it comes to, I just feel like I just want to put this out there. When it comes to like a Prestige 4 character right now, Prestige 4 fully leveled, lethal is like the new ruthless, So I kind of want to see if more players are joining absolute. Now, there was a dev poll as well a bit ago that they basically pointed out that, what was it, a 60% win ratio in absolute, but they said like around 13% of the player base was actually playing absolute. Now, of course, a poll like this, even though it's smaller, is going to cater to higher difficulties because this is Reddit, so there's a lot of players here who know what they're doing, essentially. So it's, I don't know, I feel like this is kind of weird to consider, just in the fact that the devs mentioned that there was a small sample size of players who were, or there was a small size of players who were playing absolute. So if that's the case, I'm kind of curious to see if more players are playing absolute now, considering the prestige perks. Because as far as I'm concerned, yeah, it feels like lethal. If you're Prestige 4 and you have all your perks, lethal is kind of a breeze, especially if you know how to, engage with extremists and like biovores, all that. As soon as you're capable to deal with everything in lethal, yeah, you're definitely ready for absolute. And I think the prestige perks do give players a bit of a head start to kind of adapt to the higher difficulties. So if that's the case, it's kind of cool to see if more people are playing absolute. So I kind of wanted to go through the comments here to understand, what people are enjoying right now. And not to mention, absolute is going to get a difficulty buff soon. So it's also going to be interesting to see if if there's a lot of new players playing absolute now because they feel stronger. It's going to be interesting to see how everyone's going to adapt to the buffed absolute, especially if they're a new enjoyer of higher difficulties. So yeah, let's jump into the comments. Oh wait, actually I got to finish this post, sorry. Thanks for any input, I really appreciate it. I've made a couple guides for the community. The community has found helpful in the past. It's almost time for siege mode, so I figured it'd be a good time to brush up on our skills. Also, if you're a high level player, leave your best tips. Thanks for taking the time. I mean, thanks for the post. Regardless, any sort of, information gathering like this is always kind of fun to kind of see what people react to and, everyone's experience. Yeah, it's kind of just interesting to filter out this, see everyone's experience 100%. But yeah, if more players are playing absolute, that would be kind of cool. Most players don't enjoy pushing their limits every game, and your survey doesn't have options that reflect that. I play absolute to help my friends get their shoulders, but very rarely choose to play it for fun. I choose to play ruthless or substantial. I am capable of absolute, but I find other difficulties to be more fun. There's no accurate choice for me on your survey. Hey, that's a fair point. Because, yeah, that's definitely pretty much where I'm at. That said, it's not so much pushing. I'll push the limits of certain builds for sure, but like sometimes I'll jump into ruthless or lethal with like a white weapon and see how it does, or like level 1 prestige 4 runs in absolute. Those are pretty dangerous though, because you can confuse your teammates into thinking that you're level 1, seriously. Not to mention joining higher difficulties without a team perk, also very irresponsible for the most part. It really depends, but yeah, it's kind of weird with randoms. But yeah, I mean, ultimately going through the higher difficulties, like I get it. It's probably not the most fun experience in the game. I guess it depends on your build, but when you do have a fully leveled up build with prestige 4 perks, I think absolute can definitely be pretty fun. But yeah, it's like the perfect balance right now. So when we see an absolute buff, it's going to be interesting to see everyone kind of start to shift towards the meta just so they can get through some of these operations. And as far as, I guess, people I've been playing with on absolute, I think it's been pretty good so far. I have seen more people in lethal though. Sometimes I'll drop down to lethal if I am leveling up. Like, well, obviously I'm leveling up because prestige, and I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Some days it feels like everyone's jumping up in difficulty, which is nice. But yeah, again, with the devs point of 13% of people actively play Absolute, I wonder if that includes people who didn't play the game the past 5 months or something like that. But not to mention, I also think it would be interesting to see if that includes people who played Absolute within a week, but also play Ruthless. So yeah, I would be interested to see if the devs kind of circle back to that, because if so, we kind of have a good, we kind of have some good comments to kind of compare. So yeah, let's continue reading. I've made the move to Absolute and I'm sticking to it. I probably have a 30% success rate, although at the moment that's because I'm doing the Chaos missions to try and get 100% completion, and they're about 10 times harder and less fun than the Tyranid missions. I struggle on Absolute, but Ruthless is way too easy, and if you're playing lethal, you might as well go all the way. Okay, that's kind of an interesting way to look at that. So honestly, wait, hold on, there's a few good points in this. Let's start at the beginning. First of all, this person's success rate around 30%, playing Chaos missions, 10 times harder. Let's just this is kind of weird, kind of a weird way to measure this, but potentially 10 times harder is inaccurate. Obviously, it's a hyperbole, but it is probably around 2 times harder. I can imagine if the overall absolute win rate is at 60%, and let's say for whatever reason it's 30% success rate for Chaos. I know this is just one comment. Where would that put Tyranid missions in Absolute? At like 90% to get to 60%, something like that? I mean, 90%. I'm trying to think if I've completed 90% of my Absolute Tyranid missions. Unlikely 90% sounds pretty high. I don't know if I would do that, but I would definitely say probably easily around 75%, something like that for Tyranids. And then when it comes to Chaos, I pick my Chaos missions very carefully. I'll go into Obelisk, depending if I have time. So if I have time, I'll go into Fall of Atreus and Reliquary, but I will only go into Reliquary with a meta setup in a sense. I have done Reliquary in the past with like support heavy builds, but with a heavy weapon, that's pretty much all I need. And then, not to mention, heavy also has Duelist now, so that's nice. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in running some Reliquary soon, but those missions are very long and feel very painful when you fail them, because that is a lot of time. Which I think, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting that we have a new co-op game with Night Rain, and I'm comparing Night Rain to like some of the co-op stuff in Space Marine 2. Could you imagine if Space Marine 2 didn't have crossplay right now? Man, that would be insane. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. That okay, hold on. Actually, I still have more things about this comment. I got to say though, I do very much appreciate this person kind of breaking it down here. 100% completion. Oh yeah, he's going through the Chaos missions to get his pauldron, most likely. 10 times harder. Well, I will admit, if you have a 30% success rate, it's probably 2 times harder than Tyranids, and I think that's kind of accurate. I struggle on Absolute, but Ruthless is way too easy, and if you're playing on Lethal, you might as well go all the way. Okay, so I think that's a good point. This one's short, but if you're playing Lethal, you might as well go all the way. I wonder how many players are doing that. There's good and bad things about that. The good is, hey, more players in Absolute. That's always good. What's bad about this is they might not know how to fight multiple extremists, and that is kind of where you need to be with Absolute. You should at least find a way to hold your own against multiple extremists for about a couple minutes until you can get, a player to help you out, which, if you're with a good team, they should be able to help you out pretty fast. But yeah, I would hate to see players skip Lethal ultimately. Well, they can't. Isn't it like you need 1 Lethal completion to go into Absolute? So they could be skipping Lethal in the case that they're skipping the entire operation mission. All the missions, all the Lethal missions, they're skipping the wheel on that essentially, which is fine. I think you don't need every mission completed on Lethal before you're ready for Absolute. You do, however, probably need 1 Chaos mission and 1 Tyranid mission. I would suggest Operation number 3, but I gotta admit, some people are getting very comfortable with that, with Vox Libertas. That used to be a mission that people like just failed immediately, but I'm starting to realize some players are getting better at dealing with that mission, which is very nice. So again, I would just suggest doing like Obelisk on lethal, and then maybe Termination on lethal, and then you might be ready to try out Inferno on absolute. And the thing that's rough here is the difficulty jumps for Tiernan missions are not the same with Chaos. If Chaos is 2 times harder, then you should probably go through all of the Chaos missions on lethal before you jump into absolute. Most likely, something like that. Now, this was a great comment. This comment only has like 1 upvote. It's fairly new, but I kind of like how they broke down their time and everything. And they kind of accidentally made some pretty good points, at least from where I was coming from with this conversation, in the sense that there might be more players in absolute now because they're essentially skipping lethal in a sense. My friend and I are trying to beat all the ops on every difficulty. Right now, we're on absolute. If I'm just playing with randoms, I'll do either absolute or lethal since my bulwark is already maxed out. Yeah, you're pretty much good to go with lethal as soon as you have, good perks, obviously. It's interesting that the devs kind of want you to be fully leveled for absolute, right? So I think absolute, it's more responsible to kind of wait for absolute when you have like a prestige 3, prestige 4 fully leveled character. That's fine. For as far as, most players go. Now, what's interesting here is that they mentioned playing with randoms. And they said they can do either lethal or absolute. I think this game's capability to play with randoms, I'm really starting to appreciate now. I've been playing Night Rain a little bit too much, and yeah, holy cow. The fact that one person in your absolute run can't just fail your run because they're not good enough. The fact that it's easier to carry players, I guess, in Space Marine 2 than it is in Night Rain. Oh my god. Night Rain can, seriously, you'll just have a player just scale everything up. It's wild. But yeah, without communication, without being able to ping enemies, which is amazing, I think. I'm really starting to appreciate that in absolute. Being able to ping an enemy like, oh yeah, let's focus him down and then move on to the next guy, or even being able to pin an enemy that your teammates probably didn't see. I think that sort of stuff goes a long way, for sure. Obviously in Space Marine 2, operations, a single operation is smaller than the map in Night Rain, so I don't know. I don't know if they're comparable, but I just wanted to bring that up because, going from Night Rain into operations, it's just like, wow, so much quality of life that I didn't appreciate. Night Rain is fun, don't get me wrong. It's just, it's a little janky in that sense. But yeah, playing with the randoms in absolute, I've never really had a moment where I felt like it hindered me from getting the job done. Ultimately, what would hinder me from getting the job done is getting tilted at someone else's decision and playing poorly because of it. That's normally what, that's normally what gets in my way in absolute, in a sense. So that's something I gotta work on, which is fine. That's honestly doesn't happen that often. You really have to do something insanely bad now to make me tilt because of all the other stuff that I've seen. So it's just kind of weird. Let me know in the comments, by the way. Overall, how do you feel about queuing up with randoms in absolute? Because I feel like this is an important part of it as well. Considering that if there are more players playing absolute, I wouldn't be surprised if playing with randoms is, it can either push you into playing absolute because you just want the extra challenge, or, a lot of players like this guy apparently, kind of save absolute for friends. But yeah, this guy is also fine. Like he plays absolute and lethal. Sorry, I didn't want it. It kind of came off weird. Like this guy. Nah, this guy's chill. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you newly started playing absolute. I think a lot of you guys probably are in the prestige grind, or already have a fully leveled class, and you probably went through absolute a couple times already. But I think it's kind of interesting. If more players are playing absolute, what would that say to the devs? Let me know in the comments if you guys have anything to say about this subject. Let me know in the comments if you're new to absolute. Let me know in the comments if you only play absolute with friends. Do you think playing absolute with randoms is bad? Do you struggle playing with randoms in absolute, or do you feel like it is a struggle to play with randoms in absolute? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.